The river that forgot how to breathe. For centuries, the river didn't just flow, it lived. It ran through the Scottish Highlands like a broken drain pipe, straight, fast, and angry. Whenever the heavy rains hit, a wall of brown water would tear through the valley, ripping the soil from the banks and drowning the farms downstream in a muddy grave. But in the summer, the river would do the opposite. It would shrink into a thin, exhausted thread. The fish would gasp for air, the insects would vanish, and the lush wetlands that used to filter the water would become nothing more than a dry, dusty memory. People thought this was just nature, but they were wrong. In 2009, something small, almost laughable, happened in that valley. 11 beavers were released into the wild. Just 11. With no massive construction crews, no multi-million-dollar concrete flood barriers, no steel, and no engineers, just teeth, fur, and a 40-million-year-old instinct. Fast forward 15 years, and the data coming out of that valley has left scientists staring at their screens in total shock. Flood peaks have been cut nearly in half. Water storage is up by 60%. Life is expanding. By every rule of modern engineering, this shouldn't have worked, but it did. And to understand why, we have to look at the moment Scotland accidentally broke its own heart. The hole in the ecosystem. Before the 1500s, beavers shaped the British landscape the way glaciers shaped the mountains. They were the original architects. Back then, Scottish rivers didn't flow in straight, boring blue lines. They wandered, they pooled, they spilled into massive emerald marshes and seeped deep into the cool earth like a giant sponge. Then came the fur trade. By the late 1500s, the beavers were hunted to the very last one. People wanted their pelts for hats, their meat for food, and a chemical they produce called castoreum for expensive perfumes. But when the last beaver died, the system shattered. Without those dams to slow things down, the rivers accelerated. They became like liquid water slides. The water that used to linger and feed the land now raced toward human villages in a violent, destructive pulse. Over generations, we simply forgot that rivers could be anything else. We started thinking floods were natural and droughts were normal. We didn't realize that for 400 years, we had been missing the only engineer who actually knew how to fix the world. And now, the ghost engineer is back. The experiment no one believed in. By the early 2000s, climate change was bringing heavier rain to the UK. The standard answer was to build bigger walls and deeper concrete channels. But a small group of ecologists asked a crazy question. What if the solution isn't building higher? What if it's slowing the water down? In May 2009, 11 beavers were brought over from Norway and released into Knapdale Forest. This wasn't just a feel-good wildlife project, it was one of the most monitored experiments in history. Scientists installed sensors to track water levels, counted every single bug by hand, and surveyed fish populations year after year. The deal was simple. If the beavers caused chaos, they'd be removed. If nothing happened, the project would be scrapped. But within just 2 years, the researchers noticed something impossible to ignore. The river was starting to hesitate. The first speed bump. It started with a single dam wedged between some tree roots. It was just a small pile of sticks and mud, no taller than a person's knee. But behind it, the water began to pool. Beavers don't build massive dams overnight. They're perfectionists. They layer, they pack mud, and they reinforce. When a leak forms, they fix it. When a storm washes a dam away, they rebuild it, usually stronger than before. By year 5, there weren't just a few dams, there were over 100 structures stepping down the valley like a giant staircase. Each one acted as a speed bump. One dam doesn't stop a flood, but a chain of 100 dams creates a massive shock absorber for the planet. Out-engineering the professionals. Here is the number that made the hydrologists do a double take. In the areas where beavers worked, downstream flood peaks were reduced by up to 60%. That is an insane result. Civil engineers spend decades and millions of pounds trying to get a 10 or 20% reduction with concrete walls. These 11 beavers did 60% for free. And unlike a concrete wall, beaver dams are smart. When a massive flood hits, a concrete wall can crack or overflow, leading to a catastrophe. But a beaver dam is flexible. It allows water to seep through and spread sideways into the soil. The valley turned into a giant sponge. Instead of the water hitting the town all at once, the sponge absorbed the shock and released the water slowly over several days. The return of life. Water is the architecture of life. When you change how fast it moves, you change everything. Behind the dams, new ponds formed. The water became clearer because the dams filtered out the mud. Suddenly, the ghosts of the river started coming back. Dragonflies appeared first. Frogs and toads moved into the still pools. Otters and water voles followed. Fish, like young salmon, started using the cool, deep ponds as nurseries. Despite what people feared, the dams didn't stop the fish from moving. They actually gave them a place to rest and grow. The landscape stopped looking like a drainage ditch and started looking like a living, breathing ecosystem again. The human conflict. Teeth versus tractors. But let's be real, nature isn't always tidy. As the beavers spread, they did what they do best. They changed things. Some farmers along the River Tay started seeing their fields flood. Their crops were getting wet, and their trees were being turned into toothpicks. To a scientist, a flooded meadow is a success. To a farmer, it's a financial disaster. This created a massive debate in Scotland. In 2019, the government finally gave beavers full legal protection, but they also created a management team. Now, if a beaver dam causes too much flooding near a farm, experts can install pipe systems through the dam to control the water level or move the beavers to a different area. It's a new way of living. We aren't trying to control the river anymore. We're learning to negotiate with it. The power of friction. Why did 11 animals have such a huge impact? It comes down to a simple physics concept: friction. Our modern world is obsessed with making things smooth. We want smooth roads and smooth, straight rivers so water leaves as fast as possible. But speed is the enemy of a healthy river. Beavers introduce friction. Friction slows the water down. When water slows down, it sinks into the ground. When it sinks into the ground, it recharges the groundwater. That means in the summer, when there's a drought, the river doesn't dry up because the sponge is still squeezing out water it saved from the winter. Concrete can't do that. Only biology can. The future is chewed, not built. The success in Scotland has triggered a beaver revolution across the UK. Similar projects in Devon and other parts of England are seeing the exact same results. In a century where we're facing more extreme weather, wilder floods, and longer droughts, beavers might be our most important tool. We've spent 400 years trying to solve water problems with bigger machines and more money. Maybe it's time to admit that a 40-pound rodent is a better engineer than we are. 15 years later, the verdict. If you stand in that Scottish valley today, you won't just see a few beavers. You'll see a completely different geometry of the earth. You'll see ponds reflecting the sky where there used to be dry, cracked dirt. You'll see reeds whispering in the wind where there used to be a muddy trench. The river is breathing again. It shouldn't be possible that 11 animals could rewrite the physics of an entire valley, but they did. They proved that we don't always need more complexity to fix the world. Sometimes the solution is older than the roads, older than the dams, and older than Scotland itself. The future of our planet's resilience might not be built with steel. It might be chewed.